Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the applicant support webinar with Thriving Communities, EPA Region 3. We will be doing giving a brief overview of GHHI and then going over the grant opportunity and the RFA, as well as speaking to the grant portal, and then also the resources available, and then having a Q&A following the presentation. So brief housekeeping. If you could please use the Q&A for questions. Please post the questions in the Q&A. We'll address them during the Q&A sections. Participants are muted during the webinar. If you have any technical issues, please feel free to email us at thrivingcommunities@ghhi.org, and the recording will also be posted following the event. Presentation materials as well will be posted and shared following the event. And again, if you have any follow-up questions after the webinar, feel free to email us at thrivingcommunities@ghhi.org. Next slide, please. So as stated again, GHHI, Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, is dedicated to addressing the social determinants of health and the advancement of racial and health equity through the creation of a healthy, safe, energy-efficient homes. So providing a whole house initiative. Next slide. So I shared before, the purpose of this program is to reduce barriers and make it easier for small community-based organizations to access federal environmental justice funds. In total, $600 million has been dispersed over 11 grant makers over all the EPA regions, and the goal is to distribute these funds over 3 years. Next slide, please. GHHI has been awarded $40 million, approximately of which is estimated 171 eligible environmental justice grants will be subawarded, benefiting disadvantaged communities in the EPA Region 3 area. Program staff and TA provider partners and subject matter experts will be available to support applicants and grantees. The purpose of the Thriving Community Subgrants is to focus resources to benefit communities disproportionately affected by environmental, climate, and human health harms and risks, to strengthen the capacity of local grassroots and community-based organizations, connect community-based organizations with support and TA, a technical assistance advancement, as well as advanced community-driven projects to address local environmental justice issues, and as well as to catalyze disadvantaged and underserved communities into healthy, thriving communities. Next slide, please. Here is an example of the EPA IRA disadvantaged communities utilizing the EPA screen mapping tool, and it just to illustrate just areas of how have been identified as disadvantaged. So the grant is focused to realize benefits for communities overburdened and underserved. Next slide, please. This list is illustrative and not necessarily limited to the potential kind of projects that can be funded, and just a representation of possible environmental justice issues that could be potentially funded with these grants. So the examples of some project activities, the grants are broken up into 3 tiers. The first tier being assessment, with a total of 60 grants estimated of up to $150,000 for 1 year. The second tier is planning with a total of 51 estimated grants for 1 to 2 years with a total of up to 250,000. And then finally, tier 3, which are like development projects with an estimated 50 grants with with up to 2 years, totaling up to 350,000. Non-competitive grants have been funds have been set aside for non-competitive grants, totaling 10 non-competitive awards for severely capacity constrained entities, the sum of 75,000. Criteria and selection will be developed by the GHHI and the advisory board, and the process is not managed through this RFA. So just to list who are eligible applicants under in the EPA Region 3 area is nonprofit organizations, tribal governments, both federal and state recognized, intertribal consortia, Native American organizations, which includes Indian groups, cooperatives, nonprofit corporations, partnerships and associations, local government institutions of higher education, and other community-driven environmental justice priorities. So currently the RFA portal is open and applications will be accepted for all 3 tiers on a rolling basis. Submission deadlines are for the 2-year awards November 30th, 2024, and the 1-year awards is April 30th, 2025. Application materials, vision is to provide the structure of the application packet is to provide transparent low barrier application with optional templates and limited questions. Online platform submission is preferred, but there is tentatively to be a mail-in option. Expectation is that the application can be completed in 4 to 8 hours, including up to an hour for the budget and up to an hour for the work plan. Supports are available for the applicants through this process, and we'll also mention that later in the presentation. The application materials consist of a narrative proposal, a budget, which template is provided, a work plan, financial statement, and A-1 through 3 audit. Please refer to the RFA for narrative and scoring rubric. These are optional in terms of your application submission, but if interested, just to provide a 2 to 3 minute video about the project or highlighting the need for the project, up to 3 additional project-related documents such as case studies, project logic model, or news or articles, and up to 3 letters of commitment from partnering entities and leadership. This doesn't necessarily provide additional points, but it's just something to include in your application if you so choose to. Office hours will be available for applicant support. The purpose will be to provide information or resources during the application process. The office hours will be offered twice a week and will be posted on the GHHI's Thriving Community website. The session will require pre-registration with limit to 1 query per organization submitted during the registration, and the session will be capped at 15 attendants. The session will not be used for project brainstorming or ideation. And now we will segue into Flux, our grant management portal system.
Thank you, Belita. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dawn Sanders, and I'm the Director of Compliance and Grants Management for the Thriving Communities Grant Making Program. I am excited because many of you have already jumped in, have started using our portal, and we're so excited to see many of you have registered and started applications. Today's presentation is going to deal with a high-level overview of the Flux system. It's an all-in-one system that you'll be able to use throughout not only your application process, but through award and your grant making, submission, reporting, and closeout processes as well. So I will be addressing four primary areas of the Flux system, which will include your login instructions, your application completion, submission information, and status information that you'll need to confirm that you've made the proper submission, and then how you will know the status of your organizational application and your final decisioning information and how that will be provided to you. There are 7 steps to your registration and use of Flux to get you started. We're going to ask that each of the organizations who will be making an application would designate a point of contact, because that individual is going to be utilizing the Flux system and they're going to create an account on your behalf. That person who is the point of contact or the representative of your organization is also going to be the person who is going to be receiving emails and communication from the Flux system and or the Thriving Communities team. So that individual will begin the process on your behalf. They will also register as step 2, the organization. So they'll need access to information like your EIN number and those types of documentations to properly register your organization within the system before submitting an application. At step 3, you're going to receive prompts to, can we go back? Thank you. On step 3, we're going to ask that you would follow the prompts that are in the instructions provided to your email, and then verify your email is associated with that specific organization, because that information is going to be used again with your point of contact to be able to be notified of all the status changes and updates that are pertinent to your organization. At step 5, you're going to be able to create an application once your organization is registered, and you'll be able to submit your application in this portal as well, and see application status updates as your organization's application is reviewed and there is a final decision made on your behalf. We're going to dive into the instructions for the portal, and you will see that the Thriving Communities grant making website will have you'll have access to the grant portal on our actual website. You want to bookmark this information because, as I mentioned, you'll use this specific login page throughout your application and grant award status changes. All of the updates that are happening with your organization will be made in this specific in the specific portal. You will use this information again to create an application, but will also be the site that you will use to log in for various information, and you will be able to work across your organization and or project teams to be able to update the system and add pertinent information about your organization and or your project throughout the grant making process. This specific login page is going to give you specific instructions around not only the welcome to the actual portal, but it's going to allow you to move through the various stages of registration and submission. You're going to see specific information from the Thriving Communities team, and you'll be able to follow the prompts to be able to make your submission and updates throughout the process. Your registration for your organization, again, is going to include very specific information that you will need to include. You can use our guide star prompt, or you can actually enter the information manually. So you will have the option of looking up your organization and entering the information, and it will auto-populate for you. It's a really great system that allows you to be able to use the guide star system in conjunction with Flux. And then that specific information will prompt and auto-populate throughout your application process as well. You're going to need to be mindful that your actual organization you will need a unique entity ID number. It's an alphanumeric number that you're going to be using for your submission. You will not need it to register, although it's on the page, but you will use this information as you move through the application submission process. So please follow the prompts in the application and the organizational registration to be able to request that information. Once you have registered your organization, you will receive a prompt from the Flux system, which will allow you to see that you have successfully logged in, you've successfully registered your organization, and then you're going to be prompted to add a password. So we're going to, again, use that information with the point of contact. That person is going to be managing the site for your organization, and they will be creating that on your behalf. Once that registration is complete and your password is completed and logged into the system, you will have a dashboard that is going to be used to be able to submit an application, update your information, and this portal will be accessible throughout the entirety of the grant making process. So you will again be able to update your organization's application during that initial phase of submission and make any updates related to your organization, your point of contact, or your organizational representatives. You will create an application on the welcome page, and you'll just simply click the button for creating your application. Again, this specific portal is where you're going to not only create your application, but you'll have access to a dashboard where multiple users from your organization can participate at the same time. So you can work as an individual or a collaborative team in submitting your application. Once your organization is registered and you're in the system, you're using Flux, you will see not only your organization's name, you will also see the assigned number that your application has been created. You'll see the name of your point of contact and your tax ID number. So you'll know specifically that all of your information is in the system correctly because it will automatically create an organizational profile. You'll use this profile throughout your application, again, process, and it will be the dashboard that you'll use once you become a grantee and you'll be working with our team to follow the various requests for submission of reports and closeout status of your grant application. You will notice that you'll also have your point of contact will be the person who will manage the Flux Grant system on behalf of your team. You'll see that information of the individual, their contact information, and that information can be updated at any time and edited throughout the grant making process. Again, this person is going to be the person who's going to field all of your information and respond to all of our email requests. So that person again needs to have access and be responsive to all the emails being sent to their email address and be able to speak on behalf of your organization or respond on behalf of your organization throughout the grant making process. Now for your application procedures, you're going to again create an account, which is going to allow you to enter or create your actual draft application. This is going to be the dashboard that you're going to use. And at the very top where it says welcome and how to use the portal, that's where the button is going to land for you to be able to create your actual application. Once that is created, you'll be able to then update documentation, work across your team or project organizational stakeholders, and you'll be able to add information related to your project throughout the process. Your dashboard again will look like this when you officially log in. Once your application is created, it will give you various prompts to allow you to know that again, you're in a draft form and you're able to begin your application and your uploads for your actual project. You will notice that on the next screen, you will have, again, your organizational information, which will display, it's going to be in an auto-populated screen. This is going to be something that should auto-populate, but if it does not, you can certainly update that information without any concern. And if you need assistance, we're happy to assist throughout the process. This is going to, again, be where you're adding your information or your information, again, should auto-populate about your organization, and then you would go through the following steps, answering the required questions to complete your grant application. You will notice that as you're going through the grant application, it's going to be extremely important that you save your application responses throughout the process. And in addition to any blue button that you click on that is a link to an outside system or document, it is going to take you away from the Flux system. So you're going to get a warning message to not only save your information, but that you need to open up a second tab so that you're not taking out of the Flux Grants Management System and lose any of your work. So we want to make sure, again, save throughout the process, but also make sure that you're operating in a second tab when you click on any of the blue links inside of the application portal so that you are not losing your information when you're taken outside of the Flux Grants Management System. This specific example is the actual disadvantaged community map, which you'll find inside of the Flux system, and it will take you to the EPA website. And as I mentioned, I simply created a second tab where that specific button was allowed to, I clicked on that button and I was able to get into the EPA website using a second tab and not leaving the Flux system or exiting the system, but keeping both tabs open at the same time and being able to navigate throughout the map as I'm actually completing my application. You will also notice that once you have gone on the map and you've determined what organizational areas where you're going to be serving and your project is going to be making a difference, you'll be able to come back into the grant system and be able to enter pertinent information around your project and also request the amount of money that you would like to your grant project to cover. So again, it's going to be your application information, the date of your actual project and when it starts, your actual duration. So either you're submitting for a 1-year grant or you're submitting for a 2-year grant, and you're going to enter the dollar amount of your proposed budget. And again, you're going to hit save throughout the process so that your responses are captured in the Flux system. There are several pieces of information, as Belita mentioned earlier, that you're going to be submitting to make application. We're going to go through many of these pieces of information because they're going to be critical to your submission process. There is a description at the top of the application page, which is going to not only have the description of what you need to submit in terms of your 7-page narrative, but it's also going to be helpful tools like your budget template and your work plan template that you can use if you so choose to during your application submission. It is not required that you use the Thriving Communities templates, but there are suggested materials that you can reference for your submission. You're going to notice at the bottom also of the page that there are several items that you're going to have to submit, like your budget, your financial statements, your project narrative, and your work plan. You're going to complete those uploads by using the plus signs on your application portal, and those specific materials are going to be added in this section here. You're also going to be adding optional materials if you so choose, which could be a logic model, newspaper clippings, anything that talks about the innovative work that you're doing in your region, as well as letters of commitment from any stakeholders that are going to be working alongside you throughout your grant project. You also have the option of uploading a YouTube link that describes your region, describes your projects, and allows a visual display of your actual organization program. And again, you're hitting you're hitting save throughout the process so that all of the information as you're uploading is captured well in the Flux Grants Management System. You will notice that once you have uploaded the information and you are going through the steps, each of the buttons will actually transition from the actual page. So you will actually start to see that you fulfill the upload properly as the buttons disappear on the website. There will be opportunities again for you to use our system, to use our templates. But again, you're going to need to create extra tab in your actual browser because you're going to be taking outside of the Flux Grants Management System. The downloads will be provided in an Excel spreadsheet or PDF form, but all of those specific blue buttons inside of the Flux system are going to be indications that when you click on those buttons, you're going to be taken outside of the system, and you need to make sure that you have another window for which you can use those specific downloads and not lose your materials inside of Flux. You're also going to be able to save along the way as you're actually completing your process and go back to your application. So again, if you submitted your budget narrative, but you still need to add your work plan and your project narrative, it is perfectly fine to submit one document because you might have someone on your team that's working on that from your finance team, for instance, and then someone else is working on your work plan and your actual narrative. You can actually go back into the Flux system at a later date. You don't have to complete it in one session and upload all of your information as your team is working on the documents. Again, it's a very user-friendly system, and you have the ability to save and return to the application where you left off as well. You will notice as you're submitting your documentation that you will have an upload, an add file button, as well as start uploading, because you need to not only add the file, but you need to initiate the actual upload. So it's going to be important that those two buttons on your screen are used when you're doing your upload, and that you have confirmation that the actual documentation was successfully submitted, because that information is going to be required for your application, and it won't let you complete the actual submission of your application without all required documentation being added. You will notice at the top a blue button that again is going to say your application has been, your documentation has been successfully uploaded and it's completed. And that button is going to be your indication that you can move on to the next document. Without all required documents, you won't have to worry. It will not let you submit in the system because you have to make sure that all documentation is complete before submission is successful. So you will get these notifications as you're completing that, but you also will not be able to move forward in the Flux system to submission unless all required documentation is done. So this is a great prompt to let you know that your submission and your uploads are correct, and you'll be prompted to go to the next section of your application. Now for the application submission process, you'll notice that as you begin the process, you'll have all of your documents that are required and your optional documentation on the landing page. However, once you have made an upload of all of the required documents and your additional materials, those specific headings will disappear on the page. You will notice that for on the left-hand side, again, all of the required documentation, all the materials that you can upload will be on your left, and they will be, it will be your indication that you can go ahead and start uploading. And on your right, it's an indication that everything has successfully been uploaded, and those documentations or those headings will be removed to let you know that you have successfully uploaded all of the information that is necessary. And again, you're going to hit submit or hit save before submitting your application after this particular process has been completed. In addition to the actual upload page, you will have at the bottom of the Flux Grant system all the documentation that your organization representatives have submitted. If there are any document changes before you submit, you are able to swap them out. You're able to delete the documents and re-upload them as you so choose. Once you have completed your submission, you will not be able to make any adjustments in the Flux Grant system. So please know that this is your time before you actually submit anything, that you might want to alert your team to review all the documentation, make sure the current versions of all the things you want to submit are accurate, and then you're able to move forward, hitting the save and close button so that you may move forward with your submission. You will notice once everything is uploaded that you will be taken back to the Flux Grants portal, where it's our dashboard with a submission button. That submission button, again, is going to allow your application to move out of the draft status into your submitted application for review consideration. So this is going to, again, be the page that you're going to be led to once all of your required documents have been submitted, and you'll be able to approve your application for consideration. You will get a message confirming your submission and that you're ready to go ahead with your application submission, and you'll be able to confirm that as well. Once your application is submitted, again, you can't make any changes after submission, but you will notice that in the top right-hand corner, your application has now moved from draft form to submitted application. And you'll be able to use that status bar to manage and to update yourself and your team on the transition of your application throughout the grant review process. Your application review and selection process will again have a status bar that will allow you to see how the application is moving through the pipeline. So you'll move from an application being in draft form to submitted to a threshold review. And at the threshold review level, that's where you're going to have a Thriving Communities member, a team member, who's going to make sure that all of the documentation that you were supposed to submit was submitted accurately. If there's anything that's missing or there's anything that's not correct, this will be the stage where your organizational point of contact will be notified to let them know that this information is missing something or you submitted the wrong document, and they'll send that information back to you, but you'll get a notice in your email. However, if everything is fine, you'll complete your threshold review and be moved on to a review status in the pipeline. You will notice when your application is ready for review, again, you're not necessarily getting emails of your actual status changes because the portal is going to be your main source of information until your application is approved or denied. The dashboard is going to be open 24 hours that you can check on your status, and it will allow you to see, again, at the top on the right-hand side, the status of your application. You will see when it goes into a full review for consideration and where your application has moved from, again, threshold to review and then on to the next stage in the review process. Once your application has been reviewed and scored, your application will go into final deliberation. This is where your application, the award amounts, and the decision is made about your actual application project. You will notice, again, that you're not getting emails per se about the various changes in the status of your application until final award, but this is going to, again, allow your stakeholders to be able to notice and to keep abreast throughout the process of what is actually happening with your application. Once this decision is made, you will receive a notice in your email about important next steps. So again, your point of contact or your organizational representative will receive an email alert that will allow them to know that your application has either been approved and the next steps that are going to be needed to be completed for your organization, or your application has been denied and the next steps for being able to submit for reconsideration. Thank you, everyone. That's the end of our presentation for the Flux Grants Management System.
Thank you, Dawn. So going all over to resources. The project support for awardees, a GHHI program officer will be assigned to each awardee to support compliance, drawing of funds, reporting, other requirements related to federal grants. Technical assistance provided will be assigned through a GHHI staff member, a court TA partners, Region 3 TIC-TACs, the technical national grant maker team, and outside experts based on program needs. Technical assistance can be Technical assistance can be for capacity building support or to help advance specific environmental justice goals. Next slide. And this is just a list of the TA partners. The Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center for Region 3 is the National Wildlife Federation. The University of Maryland and other partners were awarded $12 million by APA to provide technical assistance throughout the region. The primary objectives are to provide outreach to underserved, overburdened rural and capacity-constrained communities to receive technical assistance, capacity building for environmental and energy justice assistance, capacity building and direct assistance in grant writing, technical techniques and financing, and capacity and direct assistance building to engage policymakers, government, business, and industry in decision making to address environmental and energy justice initiatives. These slides will be also available post webinar, so you'll be able to access the links as well. Next slide, please. For further information, again, please feel free to contact Thriving Communities at ghhi.org or call us at 443-687-7343. You can also access resources on the Thriving Communities webpage. This includes a request for applications, a grant portal, FAQs, previous webinars, and office hours, as well as the link to the EPA EJ screening tool. Next slide, please. And now we will segue into the Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Belita. And just to make sure you can hear me okay, this is Abby Kofsky. I'm going to kick us off with the Q&A. Several of us have been seeing questions come in. We deeply appreciate the questions that folks are raising. And I want to offer a couple of things. One, there are some questions that are very specific to individual projects. We're going to really try to prioritize the questions that apply to all applicants. And if there are questions that are very project specific, would encourage you to follow up with the team by email or in our office hours. That contact information is on the website. I know we said several times, but folks have asked about making sure that the slides will be available. And I just want to reiterate that a link to the slides from today will be available on the Thriving Communities landing page. So please make sure to take some time to check out all of those resources. So just a couple of things to flag there at the front, but let me go to a couple of the questions that are in the Q&A and see if we can ask the team to chime in. So this first question, I think, will be one that we might send over to Dawn. And Dawn, can you tell us a little bit more about how long it takes to register for Flux? And then there's sort of a separate question there that says, grants.gov suggests allowing a month for that portal. So this seems to sort of need to be sort of disentangled a little bit to talk about Flux, and then also what is needed for the unique entity ID process.
Thank you, Abby. That's actually a very great question, because we have several of you on the call who may have familiarity with the SAMS.gov portal. And so I will say that as you register for the Flux Grants Management System, you will notice that the point of contact will receive email prompts in real time. So there won't be a delay per se for the person registering in the Flux Grants Management System, unless that person is missing some information and needs to confer with her team or his team. There may be instances where there may be a delay in that sense, but everything that is needed for the Flux Grants Management registration process can happen in real time. We have also made an adjustment in terms of your unique entity ID. This specific process for registration is not the full SAMS.gov registration process. So you will find on our landing page, there will be specific instructions as well as a video on the SAMS.gov website that will include specific prompts for registering your organization. That specific entity ID number, as long as your organization information is in the system, that means you have your name of your organization, your specific start date, your specific state of registration, and you're able to identify your organization's address, you will be able to receive your alphanumeric number on the same day of your registration. So again, there's specific information that you will need. And if there's no issue with the street address, there's no issue with your actual start date of your organization in terms of your organization's formation and the state that it was registered, the information will be provided to you after all the pertinent required information is uploaded into the system, and you will find that information on the SAMS.gov website, as well as instructions on the Thriving Communities page.
Great. Thank you so much, Dawn. I'm going to toss another question out, and this is maybe either for Belita or for Sira. Is there a minimum grant award amount?
Thanks, Beth. To my knowledge, I do not believe so. But anyone else can also follow up and let me know.
Okay, thank you. And for the team, can outside consultants be part of the team if they are partnering directly with the community-based organization as part of the grant writing process?
Yes, individual organizations may have a team of diverse leaders supporting the project. So there may be a consultant, there may be somebody from your financial team, there may be the person who's actually heading up the project, who may be a part of your staff, board member, or volunteer. Individuals who are going to be supporting the project will be able to interface inside of Flux, but there will be one point of contact. So again, even if you have several people working on the project, that individual who is the main point of contact will be the main person receiving our emails. And then the individuals as representatives can be added to your organization profile inside of Flux.
Great. Thank you so much. For Tier 3 applications, will partners be considered sub-awards or sub-awardees with separate budgets?
Your budget is going to be the totality of your program. So the example is, if I am working with 5 entities across my youth education environmental justice training program, I am going to have maybe 4 or 5 individuals that will be supporting that, and maybe other institutions that will receive funding. But I am submitting one project budget with for $350,000 that represents our organizational project. That is going to be the collective total of the sum total of all the projects. So again, you're going to list and itemize all of your budget items, which may include the funding that your organization is going to use, as well as your partners. But it'll be one budget that's going to consolidate all of the spend of the project across stakeholders and/or partners.
Excellent. Thank you, Dawn. This one, it looks like it's being answered in the Q&A, but I think it's an important one maybe to speak aloud as well. Can we speak to how the non-competitive grants are determined and awarded?
Thank you, Beth. So we will be working with an advisory board of environmental justice advocates and partners with GHHI, and they will be decisioning on that specific selection process. Please stay tuned for that information, because that will be provided in a very transparent process. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of how our advisory board is speaking into that process, but they are taking the lead, and they're going to be representing geographical areas in various parts of the industry, and they will speak to the actual non-competitive process and make that's their task with providing that specific feedback to GHHI and the Thriving Communities team, and they will inform that process alongside our team.
Great, thank you. Okay, team, after submission, how soon will you know if you are funded? Will we be able to view the funded projects as the submission deadline approaches?
So the goal is to provide feedback as soon as possible to the grantees if selected. And I believe that they would be receiving a response within 3.5 months.
Okay. Anybody else? Is there any further detail on that as far as the question regarding will we be able to view the funded projects as the submission deadline approaches?
So there's going to be an announcement as throughout the grant making process of who's actually been selected. Again, the main point of contact for individual organizations will be notified via email, but then throughout the grant making process, the Thriving Communities team will post all awards and individuals that have been selected. If you haven't been selected, you do have the opportunity of resubmitting an application for consideration for your project as well. But you will receive, again, an email notification of the decision of your application via the Flux system, and it will send an automated system message with next steps for your organization to move forward in the award process or resubmission process.
Okay, great. And this one is on a requirement that many federal grants have. Is there a Build America, Buy America compliance for these projects?
Not sure what that is, Beth. Can we have that person's name and then follow back up with them? I'm not sure what that.
Absolutely. That is
Compliance.
Mario Richardson. So we will check up on that, Mario, and get back to you. Let me see here. What is the process for making decisions on grants? Who decides and how?
Thank you. That's a really good question. So we will have reviewers that will serve to score or read score and provide feedback on individual applications. The scoring rubric, you will find that on the Thriving Communities landing page, which includes the points that will be assigned for each section of your application. The reviewers will be selected in teams of 3 that will be managed by the Thriving Communities team that will again read, score, and provide feedback on individual applications, and then have a final deliberation around those scores to come to consensus. And once consensus is reached, application review summations will be sent to the Thriving Communities team lead or organizational lead, who will then review those applications and scores, and final decisions will be made from that stage. So again, independently read applications will be scored, and then final decisions will be made based on score, based on industry, based on feedback from the individual reviewers that provided to the Thriving Communities team.
Great. Okay, next question. Will this grant be reimbursement based, meaning itemized reimbursement invoices will need to be submitted monthly? Alternatively, can we draw from the funds as needed?
Yes, this is a reimbursable grant that will be a drawdown.
Okay. Trying to get to some of the more general ones. Are there any other federal procurement requirements that we should be aware of?
No, not that the information for the grant for the Thriving Communities Grant Making Program for Region 3, all of the pertinent information related to your application submission or any related requirements will be again on our landing page and in the application portal. There will be no additional requirements outside of what is listed in the requirements. So again, reading our FAQ is going to be really important, because you may have something around, an example could be that you might be doing some specific type of research, and you might have to meet something around that, but it's going to be listed specifically on our Thriving Communities landing page, and it's going to be in your FAQ section. So again, use that document as your guide for any pertinent specific information to your actual application, and then technical assistance can also be provided to you if you need additional support.
Okay. Can nonprofit organizations partner with for-profit partners on their project?
Yes, as long as the main organization must be eligible. So it would need to be a nonprofit organization, an educational institution, a tribal institution, and organizations of that nature, as long as the primary applicant is approved or is eligible, they can submit in conjunction with other stakeholders and community that would serve the project well. So again, it's your choice, it's your decision, but the actual lead applicant must be eligible to apply in order to be considered.
Okay. And here's another question around who is eligible. Does the organization have to be a registered entity in Region 3 to qualify and to register in Flux? And the person says, we do work in Region 3, but we are registered elsewhere.
That's a good question. It's a very good and unique question. So for the organization, if you're a national entity, you're applying for a Region 3 grant, your project will be in Region 3. So you can be a national entity that serves multiple serves multiple locations, but your application project for submission for Region 3 must be within one of the 6 regions of Region 3 to be considered for our application process.
I think this came up in a couple of other ways, and perhaps it's been answered in the questions that have been answered, but I'll put it out there because I saw it a few times about audits and about the A133 audit. Is that required? Is that only if applicable? Or is there a particular time when an audit, the question is, when is an audit required?
Sure. So the A133 is like your single audit requirement. It's going to apply only to organizations within the federal year that have received over $750,000 in federal funding in one single year. So again, that specific document only applies to organizations that have received more than $750,000 in one single year of federal funding.
Will there be additional RFAs for this program? If our organization applies for a planning grant, will there be additional opportunity for funding to implement?
I believe an organization can apply for up to 2 awards.
Okay. Those, friends, are most of the general questions. Those are the general questions that either haven't been answered. Many of these additional ones are rather specific, and so we will respond to those to the individual who sent them, because they are specific to specific types of projects or specific levels of funding. There is one, I think this is a good question here. Can the project serve several EJ identified communities in a bigger region?
Yeah, so if the question is specific to serving, in other words, you're applying for a Region 3 grant, and you're going to be serving multiple locations, Delaware, DC, Maryland, West Virginia, you absolutely can submit a project that includes multiple regions. If you're serving outside of that region, again, you're only going to be able to apply for a Region 3 grant project that's specific to Region 3, but you can serve multiple areas and in that region for your project.
Okay, actually a few more did come up. Since this is a reimbursement grant, what is the turnaround time to receive the funds? And related to that, can you clarify the process for how payments are received and distributed to the grantee?
Sure. This is going to be a question that we will follow up on, because there's another phase to this grant process. So you'll see additional information that's going to be provided that's going to address specific grant award status and specific instructions. So in this follow-up phase of our presentation, there'll be additional information that will be provided to grantees that they'll be able to know, again, status, the cadence for payments, what receipts and information they need to upload in order to receive payment. All of that will be provided in a separate presentation.
Okay. Great. Well, we are at noon. Those are the questions in the Q&A that were applicable pretty much across the board. Abby, I know you've also been monitoring the Q&A. If there are others, or Sarah, that you've seen that you want to flag before we close out.
Thank you, Beth. I do not see other questions that need to be answered at this time. As has been mentioned, we will be following up with individuals if there are specific questions to their projects or organizations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we do just want to reiterate that on the GHHI website, the Thriving Communities landing page on the website has a lot of resources for you. There's a webinar that you can watch that just gives an overview. So if this was your first dip into the Thriving Communities grant-making program, there is a webinar that's just an overview of the program and also the slide deck that went with that webinar. Those are on the website that you can download. You can download the RFA, obviously, and we will post this webinar up there and the slides from this presentation as well. And absolutely check out the FAQ. It's a really extensive FAQ, which all of the questions that came up today that have not already been answered in that FAQ will be added to that. And know that we will continue to update that as we get additional questions from you all and from others who are interested in this program. I will leave it at that. And I don't know if my colleagues have anything else to add, but we just want to say we are so grateful to all of you for joining us today and for being interested in this program. It's such an important grants program, and we are thrilled to be able to provide it to you and to serve you through this process. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Anybody else that has anything additional?
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. And our team, just before we log out, let's make sure we get that Q&A saved over.